Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, August 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Lakeville Planning Board. It is 7 p.m. and we are meeting at the Lakeville Police Station at 323 Bedford Street. This evening we have LakeCAM recording. Is anyone else recording? Hearing none. Our first item on the agenda is a public hearing for Pinecrest Village, which has been continued. Upon the application for approval of a definitive plan submitted by Maroney Building and Contracting, Inc. for a 2-lot subdivision of Hickory Lane and Pinecrest Drive, Assessors Map 043, Block 007, Lot 001, possible vote. And we have peer review and the applicant, if you would like to come up.
Are they not out?
Yeah, the clips are right there, yeah.
And so we do have we have a letter from peer review. We have a response from the applicant's engineer, as well as the response from peer review to those response as well. And this evening we also have town council here with us. And if you could just state your name for the record and who you're with.
How you doing? I'm Jason Youngquist from Outback Engineering, here with the applicant, Ronnie, in the back. So this was a continued hearing from before. It's for a 2-lot subdivision where we're planning to extend Pinecrest Drive to create the 2 additional lots. It's a wooded lot at the moment. Some wetlands with a wetland line that was approved with an ORAD through conservation. From the last hearing, we've done a number of technical revisions to the plan. We've been on doing soil testing, and then as well as making a number of revisions to the drainage analysis, the drainage system, per the consultant's review letter. And then in addition, I know the attorney had sent in a letter concerning the rights to use the private way to get out there. And I believe he's here as well to answer any questions on that. So I don't know if the board had any additional questions on where we had left off from before.
Well, there were a number of items that peer review did bring up.
So Beals and Thomas did our peer review.
Yes.
Dated August 9th, 2024 to the board. They had a number of items. I understand too that you folks had a moment to respond as well to each one of those items. There were somewhere around 26, 27. So I think we should probably start at the beginning of the list of the ones that were of, because there was also a rebuttal.
Yeah, it's the August 9th, the rebuttal.
Yep, there was also an August 9th rebuttal from Beals and Thomas in regards to your responses as well. So we should probably start at number 1.
So if you'd like to speak to it.
Yeah, so for the record, Matt Cody, Beals and Thomas, we're the peer review engineer on behalf of the town for this project. So we issued an initial letter back in June, and most recently, our supplemental response was on August 9th. So regarding, I guess you just want to go one by one, or I mean,
I think the ones of which, the outstanding ones,
Sure,
I think would be most beneficial.
yeah, well, I guess we could, so just starting with the first, so the waivers. They're requesting a waiver for the road, for the right-of-way width, which we don't necessarily, with just being 2 lots, we don't necessarily see an issue with, going from 50 to 40 for the right-of-way. That isn't, obviously at the discretion of the board, but not a huge concern to us. Regarding the access, like it being a very long, about 3/4 of a mile dead end versus your typical regulation of 750 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the concerns that the fire department has expressed about obviously the length of that road and it kind of being non-compliant as it is, even though like they're striving to make their last, 150 feet in the cul-de-sac compliant, the, 4,000-ish feet leading up to it are not.
Yeah.
So that's a waiver that they're looking for. That is obviously a concern. If it's a concern to the fire department, it's a concern to us.
And it's a concern to us as the
Yeah.
board. Looking at this, I mean, if the fire department's coming back and telling us, you folks need to be compliant with that 750 feet, allotment, I mean, and we're out of compliance, sorry. I mean, what the fire department is recommending is one of those things which we really should conform to.
But the fire
Yeah, I
department's,
mean, we've been out there and
they're not necessarily commenting on the 750-foot length. Their concern mainly is we can't turn around out there. It's a dead-end road, so we're providing a benefit by adding a turnaround. Originally, the pavement was 18 foot wide, which they did have an issue with. So we have since revised that to a width that their trucks would be more adequate for them. And again, there's nothing we can do about the length of the, Robbins Lane onto Hickory Lane, onto Mark Twain Lane. That is what it is. But we are providing a benefit with the turnaround.
So now, town council, if, what would your opinion be if we have a non-conforming street length as it is, and they're looking to add to it? How do you see that as?
They properly requested a waiver, and so it is in your purview, because they are seeking to essentially amend an existing subdivision, and they're extending it.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fire department comments are they're extremely helpful. And I do recommend that the board follow the fire department recommendations.
Right.
So I guess it is an interesting point that, that the applicant's engineer brings up, is that, they are now providing a turnaround, which they do not have a turnaround now.
Mm-hmm.
They are providing a turnaround. So it's something the board has to weigh.
Mm-hmm. And so now, the majority of what is shown on the plans, the Cedarwood Place, is a paper street.
Right.
And so the access that they're actually using, we only see a small fragment of it on the plans where it kind of begins to go into this Pinecrest Drive. Now, in your experience with the paper streets, should that be shown or should it not be shown on a plan since it was never built?
Since it was never built, it doesn't necessarily need to be shown on a plan. It doesn't need to be built out until it needs to be utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're not suggesting that. So, I don't necessarily think that it has to be shown on the plan. It actually could be confusing if it is.
Exactly. It gives like that illusion of a valid street.
Right.
And when you go down there, because I went down here and, I mean, the existing road, I don't know if you've been there, but there's a rock wall on one end and then telephone poles lining the other side, and it's very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a small bridge over which I know some of the existing residents
Mm-hmm.
have expressed, concern with big trucks going over this bridge because they've had to repair it in the past. So during construction, what happens if something happens to this bridge?
Correct.
And so you go down and then the roads are very sharp turns. So I know the fire department has valid concerns
Mm-hmm.
about access just to get down to it. And now we're extending it further. Yes, with a turnaround, but just to get down to it is difficult access. And I can't imagine with the snow
Right.
on either end. So there is no Cedarwood Place street
Right.
down there.
It actually starts, it's a driveway.
Right, it's
For this house here, their driveway.
Yeah, it's just a house right there, yeah. So, I mean, I would like to see the plans reflect the actual street that they're,
Correct. If they should, yes.
that they're,
So does the, Do we know if, the entrance road to get in, the road that you described as having the rock wall and the telephone poles, does that have a wider layout that's not being used?
Correct. Those roads do have a wider layout.
So those roads could be improved.
So you got Pinecrest
Right.
Drive goes down, entrance here, and then you come up Hickory Lane on Mark Twain. And those are 40-foot wide layouts.
So it would be within planning board's
Yes,
ability to require the applicant to bring those roads up to more compliance
yes,
as a condition?
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're seeking to amend that subdivision.
Okay, and so that would also address the concerns about the, small bridge? Would they have, we could condition it so that they would have to, build it up to standards?
Yeah,
Okay,
Is it a culvert or is it a bridge?
It's a culvert.
It's a culvert? Okay.
There's plastic pipes underneath.
With what?
There's plastic pipes, three
Plastic.
plastic pipes.
Corrugated, yeah.
Corrugated.
Yeah, so they're HDPE pipes, which is not
Okay.
uncommon. And those do have H20 loading.
okay.
And that paper street is gone, those
I'm sorry, if you could,
Yeah.
well,
are just street.
just, yeah, come up and just state your name.
Steve Nash, Water 3 Pinecrest Drive. Cedarwood Place, that paper road, I actually own half of that road, the whole length of my property. I have the title search done through a lawyer that I paid with the record showing that I own half of that road.
Okay.
And I can provide that, I just have to get a copy of it from the lawyer.
It's a private way, any abutter to a
Yeah,
private
it's
way.
a
owns
paper
half of it.
road, it's never gonna be developed, it's all wet over there. But I do own half that road.
Okay, I mean, I don't think we necessarily need to see that.
no,
for
no,
anything, but-
he only owns it through the derelict fees, statute. It's just a statutory ownership.
Okay.
It's not on the record.
Yeah, because nobody knows, it's just a road on paper, so nobody knows who owns it, so, because I've been there for so long, and when the title search said because it's been there so long, nobody knows it, no title search can find who owns it, that I own half of it, the whole length of my property.
Just like any private
Yeah.
way.
Right,
Any abutter to a private way owns to the center line of the private way.
Right.
okay. Thank you. Would you like to go?
Alan Melchior, 4 Pinecrest. I apologize, we're kind of hijacking the process.
No,
but
I mean, I'd
just
like
wanted
to know of any questions that
Two,
are.
two things I wanted to clarify. What you're talking about potentially is including in order to widen the existing hickory, beech tree, and Pinecrest to a 40-foot width from its current 18 to 20 foot. So you're talking about extending it into, right, it's on paper at 40 foot, but that was 60 years ago.
So it's a 40-foot right of way, not
40-foot
not
right of way,
pavement.
so it would be a 24-foot paved area, not
Okay, but you're
18.
basically talking about expanding the current road substantially into
Yes.
people's front yards and stuff.
Well, as a,
As
you know,
a-
as
as
a
an
condition of, if, you know, if this was to be
To go
approved.
forward. Right.
So to make it more conforming with the zoning requirements, so that, and the rules and regulations.
And I didn't see it in here, but I know one of the other concerns from the fire department was access to water, since there are no fire
Correct.
hydrants down there. And I don't think that ever came up particularly in the review. Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Yes, the fire department did talk about, limited fire apparatus access, contribute to the loss of property. They are talking about the installation of a compliant NFPA 13D residential sprinkler system or the creation of a reliable drafting location along the shoreline of the pond. So we wouldn't, necessarily deal with anything that's interior to the dwellings, this, you know. This would just be exterior. But, as far as the drafting location, you know, if the fire department is asking for that, is that something that we could ask for them to?
Yeah, because that would be the
Show on the
method of
plans.
fire, that would be the method for fire
We don't have any
safety.
access to the water, so we can't provide access for them to draft water on.
So what is your fire plan?
Same as every other house around the fire department has tanker trucks.
But what if the fire is of such a nature that you have to draft? Then what do you do?
Whatever they do now. We can't give them, you know, other than digging a big hole. and tell
Yeah,
them to
and-
draft on it, we can't give them access to water that we don't have access to.
They did mention though, in that letter, that, you know, you would have suppression systems, a sprinkler system for each home as an alternative. Is it-
Yeah, but.
Yeah.
I would think the issue on that would be, does their well produce enough to run a
No.
system?
No.
Well, so then I guess it does say, I didn't start far enough back, the inclusion of a fire code compliant vehicle turnaround capable of accommodating the department's largest vehicle at the termination of the access road is necessary. So I guess they're asking, to be able to make sure that that cul-de-sac, excuse me, has large enough, radius for them to have their
Right,
largest
which it does when
truck turning
with
around.
with the changes to the plan, it does. We went to
does.
the 20-foot wide pavement.
Okay,
We ran their
you did.
turning radii program.
Have
on
you,
that.
so we don't have that included in the plan, so? The turning radius?
No, they asked for the 20-foot, we did it, but we also ran the turning radius, and the radiuses are all listed on the plan.
Okay.
But we did it, it's a turning movement, program.
Yeah, so usually it'll show that, you know, on the plans, showing that it's been run.
Who owns access to the water?
The people living on the water. We are not adjacent to water.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Greg Marani, the applicant. The whole town doesn't have hydrants. I've
Right.
been building this town for a long time, built a lot of houses in this town, and none of them had fire suppression in them. No one has hydrants. Everybody's on a well, except for maybe on Main Street or something.
Oh, my God.
But
I think
why
the
am
issue is-
why am I being forced to?
So I think it's
do that?
the issue is the length of this road and how difficult the access is, that they have to ensure safety. So that's what we do have to be concerned with, the safety.
Yeah, but I built houses down that road, and this never came up.
Well, case in point, there was a big fire there, it was
Yeah.
a total loss
Did you-
last year or the year before.
Did you have access to the water?
And the fire department, fire engine got stuck down there.
Because he didn't have a place to turn around.
Yes,
Yeah, so there's an issue. There's an issue.
there's an issue with all those houses. I mean, and I was building when all that road was the same width the day I started and the day I finished. And it never came up. And now I'm being pinned down just to do two houses out there to
Well,
put
It's not,
suppression systems in.
just in all due respect, it's not just you. It would be anybody who is going forward. This is how things are conforming. We have to follow certain guidelines and structures as part of being on this board.
Because we didn't do it right in the past, doesn't mean we
Yeah,
don't
but
do it right now.
you just approved a bunch of, hammerhead projects, and they don't have suppression, and they don't have hydrants. I don't understand.
So I think-
don't understand it at all.
I think the
Without getting
concern
off
is.
topic,
Yeah, we do have to stick to the rules and regulations, and if there are major concerns from the fire department, as well as this board, the residents that live there, we do have a set of rules and regulations, and this is not something out of the ordinary. We're just asking to be compliant with, or become more compliant with the rules and regulations that exist.
So their major concern was the width of the road that we've increased on our plan, so they could easily turn around.
Right, but I know you are still asking for the waivers for that, as well as the sidewalks. My concern, I do have concern for the children that have to walk these narrow roads up to a school
But
bus.
our sidewalk wouldn't go anywhere.
okay, so just so we stay on track, let's go to the next line item, because I want to make sure that we cover all areas,
Yeah.
but we're in sequential order, because I know we have a lot to cover.
So in conjunction with like the length is also the width question. And like I said, they have increased the width of their section, though, you know, the previous sections aren't as wide. So again, I guess we defer to the fire department on how they feel about, you know, just because their last 100 feet is compliant. It's still a long way up there. But that's, you know, we would defer to the fire department on that. And then again, and then the next one being the sidewalks. Being two houses, being that none of the surrounding roads have sidewalks, having them put in the sidewalk for those two houses, I guess we're comfortable with that. You know, it's like it'd be a sidewalk for those two houses, and it wouldn't go anywhere else. So, unless the board was, you know, inclined to make them run it all the way out, but that seems a little. And that wouldn't be typical from what, you know, we see for them to do that. It's just those sidewalks there now.
I guess
to extend, you wouldn't extend this. You wouldn't add sidewalks to streets that don't have sidewalks.
Right. But if they are to at least widen the existing road.
If they're going to widen the existing road and start doing improvements, then maybe adding a sidewalk is something that could be considered. Sure.
Okay.
I guess typically you wouldn't be improving the road. The road would already been compliant.
Right.
So like for them to do a sidewalk to no other sidewalks is typically a reasonable waiver to ask for.
Okay.
So those were the waivers. And then as far as, you know, moving forward, a lot of, like, again, all the stormwater comments that we had were addressed. There were some, you know, some kind of minor administrative ones, you know, some forms and stuff that we didn't see. I assume maybe the board has been given those forms or the proper paperwork's been filed. Just we don't always get everything.
Kathy,
As far as like the paperwork side.
Did you get those forms yet?
Like one of them didn't exist. I'm not sure what the other one was.
Okay.
One was the certified abutters list,
Yeah,
and then
that
the other
doesn't
one was, I forget what it was, but those were all in there.
And then as far as others going down, you know, again, more just kind of administrative thing, you know, showing wells on abutting properties and like building setback lines versus like the new homes. Things like that aren't necessarily, you know, deal breakers. They're more just visual and just to help everybody understand what's going on. I guess you just take these ones. So six, you know, plan scale, where, you know, what the 1 by 30 is sufficient to us. 7 is the one about, you know, not showing the wells. 8 is, you know, the setback line concern. So they did add the setback lines, but on a plan that doesn't show the homes. Typically, we'd like to see the home in relation to the setback lines to make sure everything's fitting properly, you know, like an overlay there. 9 is, you know, regarding some driveway profile. I mean, one of the driveways is going to be extremely steep, greater than 15%. So
Is this for lot 2?
Lot 2,
Yeah.
correct. 10 regarding soils was addressed. 11 regarding street trees was addressed. 12, again, kind of an administrative table was addressed. 13, again, going back to, you know, 13 is again like a fire department kind of access issue, which is obviously kind of remains outstanding. 14, the curbs were addressed. 15, was regarding septic. Obviously, for the, you know, the Board of Health is going to have to do the septic, you know, when we get to that point, it goes forward. 16 is the monuments they were showing, that was addressed. 17, street signage was addressed. 18, street lights was addressed. 19, you know, having the proper stamps on the plan was addressed. And then 20, there was a quick question about the O&M and the homeowners association, that was clarified. And then again, we had, you know, 8 or 9 stormwater comments, just about, you know, the assumptions that were being made for the system and everything, but those were all addressed, so we're comfortable with that.
Can you just clarify when they refer to a homeowners association, is that a new one that will be created for subdivision? If I could state what homeowners association for members party for the long-term operation.
So their response was the operation and maintenance plan has been revised, so the homeowners association will be responsible for the maintenance of the drainage system. Did you want to speak to the homeowners association?
So that'd be a homeowners association just for these 2 lots, so they can maintain the drainage system.
So not specifically the Huckleberry Shores Association or Huckleberry Knolls Association.
Would you want to come and state your name for the record?
John Lenz, President of the Association of Huckleberry Shores. So just a clarifying question, since I'm the owner or the president of the association, who would be responsible for maintaining the roads, plowing of the development of that street?
So we would ask them to submit an HOA agreement and we would have town council review it to make sure that they would be, responsible for the drainage and maintenance.
Okay, but it's not in this plan that they're submitting, it's not specifically tied to the Huckleberry Shores Association, which would have beach access, or Huckleberry Knolls Association. They would have their own association that they would have to create.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else on the board have questions, comments, concerns? Okay,
No.
John?
No.
I'm somewhat concerned about, kind of the overall access getting down there. I mean, they're doing an 18-foot wide road just on your section,
20-foot wide per the fire department.
but what about all the way out to, the 4,000 foot length of the road is what width is that?
It varies.
But well below 18 feet, right?
No, some of it might dip down below it, but a lot of it's 18 all along Robbins Lane that's 20, I do believe.
I mean, I hate to put you in the position where you have to kind of improve the entire road. But it seems foolish to build a piece of road that the fire department can use, but when they can't get to it.
It hasn't been an issue and they have a homeowners association to improve those roads if they felt the need for it, which obviously they haven't, because they haven't improved it. Adding 2 houses is not gonna impact how that road's getting used. If it was adding on a dozen houses, yeah, that's gonna add a bunch more traffic, but 2 houses is not gonna impact.
So it is a major concern for the association, just for the fact that the road does get heavily used. And because of the water and the settlement, the rocks do go up on the road, and we're constantly having to repar and repave that road. So widening the road is not an option for us. We have not a lot of homeowners that pay into the association. The money that we get is basically for plowing and just leave maintaining and stuff of that nature, not for widening the roads or not maintaining or growing the street. So unfortunately, it's just a tough situation down that beach area just because of how much that road settles and rocks continually come up, and we're constantly patching and updating that. It's just the biggest maintenance that we have to face on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, when I was talking about, widening the road all the way up, I wasn't actually expecting the homeowners association to be doing it.
Yeah, it's just a hard thing. That street takes just a normal beating on day to day, and as the trash trucks go around the corners, it's peeling the street away from the side. So it's just one thing that we always have to maintain and just worry about long term.
Thank you. Well, so for myself, I would like to see the plans revised to not show that paper street as though it is the access point. And,
You're talking about
clarify that it is coming off of,
this?
yes,
Cedarwood Place.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not showing it as the access, we're just showing it because it's the property lines?
right, but you're coming in, you're not coming up that road, you're coming in over here.
This way, yeah.
Yeah,
But these are the property lines, so we have to show Cedarwood Place.
but you could move it.
I can't, because
No.
that's where they are. I mean, we could extend the view.
Yeah, I think that's what she
Yes,
meant, was
yes, because
extend the
you have,
view.
you have
We could
boxes
extend it.
here that you could
We
move.
could extend the
that-
view, so you
yeah.
can see farther down Pinecrest.
And then you can also put not constructed or something on Cedarwood Place. It says
We
private
put,
40-foot wide.
Yeah, paper street or unconstructed paper road or something. like
Yeah.
that.
And, so we do have, comments from the select board as well. They, stated to reinforce the homeowners association to be established to maintain drainage facilities, other systems related to the development, ensure that any fire department requests are met, and ensure that an area is designated for snow removal. So, I know planning board is concerned about the fire department's comments and access as well as the select board. We haven't gotten, and have they reviewed any of these changes or sent any further comments? They haven't, fire department?
No, I didn't get any response back.
Okay. For myself, I would like to see, you know, if there is a way of extending this, building the road out to the proper width that is shown. I think that should be a condition because we need to provide adequate access.
Well, I think
And
putting
right now there
burning of
isn't.
4,000 linear feet of roadway for him to improve is a bit much. I mean, we could probably show Pinecrest and the areas where that is less than 20 feet and maybe show that to be improved up to the curve, but to do the rest of the 4,000 linear feet that everybody else is using seems a bit.
Well, I think the concerns are valid that, they have an HOA maintaining this road with that small bridge and they've had to do repairs. So why should the homeowners association be responsible for repairs if there's any damage from construction vehicles?
We could definitely condition any damage done by construction vehicles would be the applicant's responsibility. If anything happens to that bridge, it can be documented pre-construction and documented post-construction and make sure that nothing happened to that bridge. I mean, it's a connection from the wetlands that they have there to Long Pond. So that definitely we don't want to impact that.
So did you have something?
Yeah, Daniel Vieira.
Just come up to,
Just very quickly.
Mike.
It should be, some part of this should be, fairly obvious. This is a plan of mitigation. I mean, you're adding an improvement to an existing problem that is a substantial improvement. Now, to simply say, we improve the entire 4,000 feet, well, yeah, that may bring it to town standards, but that may not be what the fire department's asking for. I mean, there may be very specific things that they say, if you fix this, this, and this, we're okay with it. Because it's not possible that somebody would expect to make improvements for every house to build to. And again, there is an offset of that, and that is that if you are living down at the end now, you'll have a place where public safety can actually turn around. So it's not something for nothing. It's not something for nothing.
I think the problem is the fire department will now have to go down to these extra units when it's a struggle to get down there as it is. And
we're not arguing with each other. I'm just saying that a blanket statement, improve 4,000 square feet of road is 4,000 feet of road is necessarily what the fire department's asking. But there may be very specific things in the field that they may say, again, and maybe it's at a continued public hearing. If you fix this, this, and this, we're good with it. Like, that's a practical solution. As opposed to build me a town road.
Yeah, we can reach out to them and see if there are specifics
what do they specifically want?
They are looking for.
Right. Because the flip side is, if those things get done and the fire department's happening, then even though, I get it, if you're objecting because you're going to object anyways, but the truth of the matter is the residents, if those things can be addressed, then the residents that live there they're getting a mitigation in terms of that turnaround, not only for them, but for everyone who goes there. And I would say that you probably condition your approval that these two lots, assuming the associations could never work anything out, I mean, they could come to an agreement and say, okay, we'll participate, we'll pay, because this is going to be new. I mean, the maintenance on this is going to be nothing for the next.
Isn't that the key though?
Years.
Isn't that
could
the
be
key?
done.
You go back to the fire department and say, tell us exactly what you want. Get that up in that area. They come back to us and they say, that's it. Then we put a cost to that. Can't the three of you homeowners associations get together and say, we'll split it 3 ways and let's be friends and go away?
Anything could be done. I'm not suggesting that's not the case, but I'm just saying we should know what that list is, as opposed to just a blanket statement. Go, go improve the world and, we'll be better, because they
But
may
I don't
not
think
be
Michelle's
really.
saying that, and I think we can give, I think the fire department's come back to us with some information. We go back to them again, Michelle, say specifically, what do you want these people to do? Here it is, then you guys say, okay, here's what has to be done. You three guys, three associations, split the cost, right? No? You don't want to do that?
We certainly
Well,
wouldn't.
let's just take one step at a time.
Yeah.
We'll ask the fire department for some input.
Yeah.
I know.
The truth is.
Well, I know, but that's what they're here for.
Yeah, the truth is,
Yeah.
we, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have our association, we'd simply join the other ones, contribute to it, and they'd have more money, but, those are the discussions you can't really have unless you have an approval, because the point is to try to get it denied. And again, I'm not faulting them for that, that's their right, they have a right to do that. But again, in a perfect world, we'd be trying to marry these two things, not resist them, because I do think it makes a substantial, with some practical improvements and the cul-de-sac at the end, it makes a significant improvement for everyone. So anyways, I wanted to just convey that. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else here that had a question coming
I
up?
was just more about the frog pond. It was just, instead of paying for damages, just when I built my house, I put a steel plate across through it. So it really protected it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the culvert that everybody's talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just, if that thing goes and rain hits, the street's flooded,
Okay.
nobody's gonna get up to the street no matter what happens,
Mhm.
including I get stuck and stranded until somebody actually fixes it. So don't wanna be in a position where
Yep.
heavy concrete trucks or whatever doing it, so just put a steel plate around it, protect it.
Yep.
You know,
Precautionary measure, yep.
That may even be an issue that Conservation Commission wants to address too, if it's
They're-
shown or if it's
They're
even.
involved all on this, but,
Not further down.
farther down, we haven't filed anything for that. Putting a steel plate on there wouldn't really, you're not digging up, there's no disturbance there, so it really wouldn't require a, conservation permit.
But if the thing did fell down, however long it would take to go.
Yep, no,
the
steel plates
architect,
definitely,
Get it approved.
No,
Yeah,
I
you
agree.
could-
Yep.
You're seeing
That's
houses
good.
be,
It's a good idea.
I mean, I still am leaning towards seeing them bring it up to compliance if they're gonna add to it. If-
So there's a couple of things. It appears that they have 170 or 219 feet of frontage on Hickory Lane, and they need 175 feet of frontage. So they're doing this to get the two lots. They could come in with an A&R for the one lot. But they're doing this to get the two lots. The other thing to look at, which was provided to us, was the deed, which it appears that the cost to buy this lot was $100. And so I'm not sure that they could argue, that the cost is too high to improve the road, to improve the rest of the road for safety purposes. I think it is a good idea to talk to the fire department, find out exactly what they're looking for.
Okay.
It's important. Fire
Absolutely.
safety is important, and it's part of 81M. So it is part of, when you're looking at subdivisions, to make sure that you're providing safe infrastructure for these subdivisions.
Even an ambulance service, somebody has a heart attack down there. You gotta make sure an ambulance can get down there, and a fire truck at the same time.
Yep.
And again, to be clear, I'm just saying that the reasons why I feel so strongly about this is because it was a major house fire, which was obliterated. And there was also an issue with fire suppression in terms of emergency vehicles getting down that road at that time. So the location's very tough. So, I mean, again, we're all just trying to make sure that this is as compliant as we can be, but also have some happy mediums here. Of course, we want to make sure that we want to work with you folks, but it's got to be done in such a way that meets the standards of not just the town, but, the state and local regulations.
Okay, so Kathy, will you reach out to the fire department ask them, for specifics as to what they would like to see improvements made, for access.
Or to attend a future meeting.
If they would like to
If
attend,
they'd
then
like to walk,
they're welcome to.
do a site walk, not a site walk, but a
You did.
road
Site
walk, I
visit.
guess. not a
Yeah,
walk.
We've been-
we did walk
do a
a
walk
few
with them.
times.
We've been down there.
Just to
See
check it out.
where the areas of concern are and.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a matter of addressing here,
That's all it is. Yep.
Okay, so invite them for a site walk potentially. Um,
long site walk.
I'd like to see, the revisions to the plans like we talked about with the paper street.
The wells?
Like peer review has brought up the wells and the building footprints with the setbacks. And then what is your, how do you plan to address the driveway number 2 slope?
Well, if we're making some plan revisions, we can, adjust that grading.
Okay, great. Other than that, I would consider potentially working on a draft of conditions depending on how the fire department responds. Come on up.
Sorry, Alan Melchior, for Pinecrest. I just have some questions. The other big issue for this area is water. And I understand that the drainage system has been designed presumably to manage a 100-year storm. I read in the Globe that a town in Connecticut got 16 inches of rain. 100-year storm, figures if I understand right, are for like 7.6 inches of rain in a 24
Typically around 8, yes.
hour period. And I assume that that's what's the design parameters that have been used.
So typically you design for 25, but they've designed to 100.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the recommendation is designed to 100, but like all the regulations say it's got to be at least 25. So anything over 25, at that point, it's.
So I guess my question is, one, if we have a 100-year storm that's at the upper end of the range, right? So the range is from 6 to 9.5 or something. Does the drainage pond still maintain it in the drainage area? Or at what point does it, how much rain would it take for it to
Percolate.
kick in the overflow, which would send water down into the wetlands and directly into Long Pond, which has already got problems of runoff and stuff. So I guess I'm wondering what's the margin of error here, and if it's a fairly narrow margin, and it looks like 6 inches maybe of difference between a 100-year storm and overtopping the runoff thing. Is there a way of increasing that to make it? If we assume that 10 years from now, a 100-year storm is actually going to be 15 inches.
Is there some?
Can we build this with more of a view for the future?
So this is designed for 8.68 inches of rain.
Yeah.
Which is extremely heavy rainfall that we don't see ever.
Except in Connecticut this week, in Vermont the week before.
I mean, there's always going to be some kind of like outlier, crazy storms.
Yeah.
They clearly can't design for infinite. I mean, if there's a standard, they've designed to it.
So
If
you
we're
are
getting
satisfied
more
with
than-
this?
If we're getting more than 9 inches of rain, this drainage basin is going to be the least of everyone's concerns.
But yeah.
I mean, yeah, there is a pond there, so I do see that as an issue, yes, but,
Yeah, but the fact is
I know,
the
there were.
pond overflows for multiple.
I know,
storms.
there were plenty of pond front homes underwater this spring, I know that, yeah.
I'm again more concerned about at what point there is the overflow. I can't remember what it's called. There's an overflow channel that takes it down into the wetlands, which drains into the pond. And what I'm hoping is that can we minimize the likelihood of that happening?
So
as part of the design?
typically, we want to see it hold a 100-year storm. We want to see it hold a 100-year storm while still maintaining a foot of freeboard.
Okay.
So they're holding that almost 9-inch storm with a foot of extra freeboard.
That's one of the questions. It wasn't clear.
So I can't tell.
Non-engineer reading this whether it was 6 inches or a foot of freeboard.
Typically, it's a foot. Yeah. A freeboard above that elevation.
And that's not just to the top of the berm, that's to the point where it
That's the-
starts overflowing.
That's the top of the berm. It might overflow previous to that, but like through the controlled spillway
And
as
that's-
it does now. Like, you know, like to mimic an existing condition.
So just to make the point, I'm looking to minimize the times that it goes over the controlled spillway, because that will damage the wetlands in the lake.
It's been designed to mimic the existing condition. Which is all they can do, or is like the regulation.
Okay.
Like they can't increase it from what it is now.
If there is a way of adding the margin of error, I'd like to have that considered. The other question about water is that the drainage pond is fairly close to my neighbor's septic system. And whether, if you were draining a 100-year storm, what does that do to the leaching field that's kind of next to it? Does that water go in another direction, or does it undercut the leaching field?
Or with the proximity of the wetlands, the assumption would be it would go this.
Okay, but it wouldn't basically
I mean,
into his backyard.
No, I mean, and there's you know there's setbacks and there's requirements and they're far enough away, and with the wetland right here, I mean the general area. I mean, if this is where it's wet, that's where it's going to go.
What is the setback from a basin from all these?
Off the top of my head, I want to say like 50 feet, and just right away alone is 40.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, so because they want half of this, so, yeah, because it's in the backyard, so my leaching field is. So I don't know the exact distance.
Yeah, but-
How close to the road, to this side of the road is that?
with
Is it like right up to it, or?
it's stuck up here.
Yeah, because those are just right next to them. How far off the road is it?
I mean the grading, the associated grading is like right up to the road, but the basin itself looks like, I mean, based on if that's 40, it's probably 20 feet off the road, off the paper street.
Off the pavement, okay.
Okay. All right, so, anyone else have any further comments, questions, concerns at this time? No? Okay, so we're gonna reach out to the fire department, and then depending on how they respond, we will try to work up some conditions. We'll continue. Our next meeting is September 12th. I don't know if that gives enough time. Should we push it out a month, or do you want to do it to the?
Say we go with the 12th and
The
see if
12th?
we can discuss with the fire department
Okay,
in that time, and if not, then we just continue at that time.
Okay.
But we want, obviously want to
Yeah,
keep
we
them
gotta
moving
wait
along,
until
as I'm
we
sure
get
you guys
there.
do as well.
yeah, that's true,
We
the
wanna see
holidays
this
in there too.
happen, so.
I feel like
But
the
you-
fire department will be pretty quick though.
Well, not if they want to do a site visit, and if everybody has to combine, schedule, I don't know. You think,
I would do the 12th and
12th?
then just, if we have to, like you said, if we have to continue, we continue, but
all right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue, Pinecrest
I'll second that.
to, September 12th.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. All right, agenda item number 2, public hearing, site plan review, 43 Main Street, continued upon the application for site plan review and approval submitted by John O'Leary for the proposed development of Wingate Residences. It will include 120 units of assisted living and memory care and 70 units of independent living with associated site improvements, parking area, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure. Accept request to continue. We do have a request from Mr. Mather asking to continue the hearings until September 12th. So would a planning board member like to make a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion that we continue the, Lakeville Hospital redevelopment till September 12th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 3, public hearing, site plan review, 43 Main Street, continued upon the application for a site plan review and approval submitted by John O'Leary for the proposed development of the Fox Estates, 55+ age qualified cottage home development. It will include 68 units across 26 cottages, 10 duplexes, 16 triplex, a plus or minus 5,000 square foot clubhouse, and a plus or minus 2,000 square foot wastewater treatment plant, which will service the entire master plan development of the former state hospital site. Also proposed is a community amenity space, associated site improvements, new roadway, parking area, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure. We have a request to continue this as well. Would someone make that motion to continue?
I move that we, continue it till September 12th.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have one question
Yes.
on that, if I could bring it up.
Yeah.
Since that piece of property is actually not on Main Street, should we start calling it a different address?
No, it is, that's their address, 43 Main Street.
But aren't they gonna make the access only in the, only in the back?
The
Yeah,
access
so
is
that'll
only coming
have-
from
79?
Rhode Island though.
So right now.
Yeah,
it's-
no, I understand right now, I'm just kind of, can we start to move that, because it is completely separate and accessing from Rhode Island and not from Main Street.
I thought the first two buildings were right on Main Street.
Two
Two
three of their property, two of the three properties, and the one property is the back.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the Fox Estates that would be coming from the
The
back.
first,
Yeah.
phase one.
These are both the 43.
So the first one that we just continued was for the two in the front that are at
Yeah,
43.
that's phase
Yep.
one.
So I
right,
guess
yes.
eventually that second item for the Fox Estates will have a
I'm
different
just saying,
address.
I'm just
It
saying
won't until you
eventually.
approve it, because part of the approval, I'm assuming, is a plan to cut it off.
Yep.
So it won't be until you approve it, so you should leave it the way it is
Okay.
now.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
All right, we have a set of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yep.
I had no edits. Did anyone else have any edits to the minutes? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 27th, 2024 meeting minutes as drafted.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 5, discuss items for special fall town meeting, possible vote. I wanted to maybe bounce a couple things off of Amy while we have her here, just because, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds on, the ADUs. Monday, we have 2 members that are going to be joining the select board meeting. We're going to, provide questions to them that we want to have addressed. I'd like to, knowing that site plan review can be used for these ADUs, I would like to put something on fall town meeting that I know you gave guidance that shows defining the ADUs.
Mhm.
I think we should include the definition as well as something that triggers site plan review for the ADUs as well as the special permit process for any additional units. So, do you happen to have anything primarily drafted?
No,
or
because of the
preliminary?
fact that, the legislation at the very end states that EOHLC may establish guidelines or promulgate rules and regulations for ADUs. And, it's almost certain that they're not going to promulgate rules and regulations, but they most likely will issue guidelines. And if the guidelines are anything like the MBTA zoning guidelines that HLC promulgated, we're all in for,
Revisions.
yeah.
Okay.
So we are, again, this is, a situation where, the legislature clearly thought they were doing a good idea. They had a great idea, but they kind of just then left it for municipalities to handle. So the problem that we have is that the ADU, the as of right ADUs goes into effect on February 2nd of 2025. That is just a really bad date because all of your town meetings are after that.
Yeah.
Your spring town meetings are all after that. We have no springtown meetings happen before February 2nd. So, we're stuck. We don't know if you, there's no harm in putting something on for the fall. You might have to then go back in the spring. Revise it to be able to comply with the, whatever HLC comes up with. And of course, HLC has not made any statement as to what they're thinking. They're still embroiled with MBTA communities, because they have, about probably 150 coming up that are, that are due in, December of 2024. So, there's a chance that HLC is going to regulate, they're going to have guidance that states that, for example, setbacks can't be more than half of the setback for a primary residence. So say your setback for primary residence is 20 feet on the side, they might say something where you can only have it be 10 feet or less. You can't have it be more than that. But we just don't know. Okay. But I don't think that it would be, a waste of time to have the state definition placed into your bylaw, also site plan, and also making a site plan requirement. And then you could also, yes, you could put in the special permit requirement for more than one ADU, and then that one might have to be amended.
Okay. Could we potentially just reference as something that says to reference the state guidelines as they come out until it's revised?
We could do that. Yep.
So do you see it as being a very short little snippet that we could just define it?
Yep. And require site plan.
Review,
Yep.
And then anything over, special permit, state's guidelines.
Right. So then if you get into, so you wouldn't be getting into setbacks or anything like that. And that would probably be the smartest way to go.
Okay.
My question is, again, with the ADUs, that how would they get around, like, you hit with the setbacks, but like they can't, like Michelle and I were discussing before, like they still have to go before Title V.
Yes.
Right, and all that, so.
So it says it right in the legislation that they are not exempt from Title V.
Right, so again, but that would all fall into line with what they could do anyway, so they'd have to be triggered to go in front of the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission for each ADU.
If there's wetlands involved, and then with the Board of Health, yes, so the one way that Board of Health is not going to be involved is, as you know, some towns require a minimum of a 4-bedroom septic system. Somebody builds a 3-bedroom house, then they can clearly come in with a 1-bedroom ADU and they'd be fine because they already have a 4-bedroom system.
Right, they have to prove that. Yeah.
Okay. So, but if not, no, they would have to upgrade their system. Yeah. Okay. And it's whether it's an attached or detached, because as you know, Title V is all about bedrooms.
Yep.
So they don't care if it's attached or detached.
If they're using it, or trying to put a new one, or they have to try to put a new one in, but which would be almost impossible to put in a separate septic.
Oh yeah, I do wonder if you're allowed to have 2 systems on one lot.
I don't think you are.
Yeah, or be able to tie in to the current one if they're, if it's large enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd have to be able to, you'd have to have a hookup and everything.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to just discuss, putting on for town meeting, the ADUs, the definition, small trigger for site plan review and special permits. The other thing, 2 of the members here are gonna join select board meeting on Monday, is that discussion is gonna include 40R expansion. I know we've talked about it previously. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it, but we have, on Tuesday, we sent a request for the select board to consider holding a special town meeting just to expand it, to try to get it done in a more timely fashion. If they don't believe that's a feasible option, my thought is to also hold a placeholder on the fall town meeting for 40R expansion. So we know that Rhino has already submitted, I guess they had an incomplete application, they do have to come back. So I guess there isn't a formal application yet for the comprehensive permit at 43 Main, but we know that it's coming, and we know that they're filing a 40B. The hope is to change it to 40R. How, if they get far enough into that process, is there a way on the back end that we could convert it from a 40B to a 40R?
Sure. So I did do some thinking about this, and I don't think you need to have a special fall town meeting.
Okay.
Because their application technically has not been filed for the 40B. But once that application gets filed, the ZBA has 30 days to hold a hearing, and then at that hearing, the 180 days starts. So that 180 days is well past November. So that 40B is still going to be before the ZBA in November. And zoning bylaw change is effective upon the vote at town meeting. So the day after town meeting approves the 40R expansion, they can apply to the planning board under the PAA approval that we already have in the bylaw. And so they could just put their, they could put their 40B on hold. They could come to you with a 40R as a 40R is a bit different than a 40B, because with the 40R, they are complying with the bylaw. So really, it's not a 180-day process before the planning board. I think the last one was 2 meetings or 3 meetings. And because, the 40R, the section of the zoning bylaw for 40R contemplates multifamily housing. Whereas, right now in your zoning bylaw, 43 Main Street does not contemplate multifamily housing. So it's a much quicker process to come to the planning board for a 40R than to go to the ZBA for a 40B. And, I understand their position, and I understand, and I'm very cognizant that we can't tell them they cannot submit a 40B. But their chances, if it passes in November, their chances of getting a permit is much faster with a 40R.
Okay.
And then I don't know, I guess I could find out if they're willing to tell me, like if they still want to follow through with the 40B, just to get that permit, comprehensive permit in place. Is there a way of, if they go through the 40B process, of transferring it over to a 40R? If
they would just have to come to you.
They would still have
They
to
would
go
simply
through
just
that.
not, they would not, utilize their 40B permit, their comprehensive permit.
Okay.
They would just come to you and get a 40R and get a permit under 40R, and they would get building permits under the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so they just use whatever peer review they already got or
Oh, yeah.
anything?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
duplicate, okay.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They wouldn't be duplicating efforts.
Okay.
So they would need a traffic study, and they would need a peer review all for the ZBA. They would need that for you guys too, so they could just simply use that.
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better about
That's-
it, because I was kind of frantically like, oh no,
Yeah.
they're gonna be in the middle of this in September, so.
So I did reach out to the state about select board member Day's recommendation that we could possibly approve it at town meeting pending state approval. They did not get back to me.
Okay.
So we do have to be cognizant that when we are talking about a zoning amendment with regard to 40R, we are somewhat at the mercy of the state.
Now, does it make a difference? So in our housing production plan, which has been approved by UHLC, we actually designated the hospital property as a potential for 40R
Yes.
extension. Does that
So
help?
yes, we've already had a meeting with HLC. We've had 2 meetings with HLC, with the 40R department over there, and they do not see a problem with the expansion.
Okay, so it's just the actual language of the bylaw that they
It's
want to review.
that they have to review and approve. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but Attorney Questle, for the vote that's taken by the town, is it a 2/3 vote?
So that's a really good question.
Okay.
Probably not, because it's multifamily housing.
Oh, so it
Okay.
doesn't,
So I would have to look at that. That's an excellent question. Because we would be allowing multifamily as of right with just PAA, which is really site plan.
so it doesn't consider.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at it, but I think that
Okay.
it might just be a majority.
Just a majority?
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, well, I think you can go now. I think the other.
This has been
I mean,
super
unless
helpful,
anybody
so
else had
thank
any
you.
questions.
No.
Thank you.
I think there was just a couple
Thank
things
you.
for town meeting that we can just discuss and.
Okay,
And,
excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
All right, so one of them that I wanted to ask about was the 40R, the ADU. So previously, we had an A&R earlier this year, and we talked about potentially, when we're looking for frontage, putting that word contiguous back in.
Oh, right.
Is
Yes.
that something that we're interested in, putting back into site plan review to bring back to town meeting?
I think that would be appropriate.
So that we don't have those weird U-shaped
Yeah, we had one just
Yeah.
Yep.
that
a
cause.
couple months ago, we had one.
Right,
Mhm.
so consider putting the contiguous
Continuous.
frontage back in,
Yeah.
okay? And then,
Did you say continuous or contiguous?
contiguous.
Oh, contiguous, okay.
Yes, with a G.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
You baby.
All right, another item, small revision to site plan review to consider. So we have accessory structures that are allowed. However, there's been a number of complaints with very large structures going in as accessory dwellings because, or.
Accessory buildings.
Accessory buildings, yep.
But
Because there are no parameters. So this is something, I did talk to the building commissioner about this previously, that it may be wise to create a tiered structure where if you have just a normal sized lot, you can have up to so many square feet. If you have, you know, a 3-acre lot, you can have a larger accessory building. And if you have, you know, 10, 20 acres, then you can have a larger building. But for an average, you know, residential home lot,
Right.
rather than having,
I mean,
you know,
part of
just
it
up.
would want to say that it would be a percentage of the primary building on the site.
Well, I
Well,
think
that's tough because
there's a,
in agricultural, you
Yeah.
could have a house that's 1,000 square feet.
In a barn that was, it's
I
5,000.
I have 2 barns that are the same size as my main house.
Okay, you're not in
Yeah, no.
compliance.
So-
I'm sorry.
No, okay, I understand. I was thinking kind of. just-
No, I know, I see what you're saying, but I'm just thinking of,
Yeah.
you see the houses where it could be a
Yeah.
small farmhouse and then they have a barn up there.
Right.
But I know what you mean, like as far as the percentages as.
like putting up a
4
a
different
metal
accessory-
building,
yeah.
you
If
know,
you were-
It would be
instead of a
interesting
garage.
to maybe.
Michelle, you
even-
familiar with Rodney Dixon? His neighborhood?
I did
They
speak
have a
with her
60
earlier.
by 40 metal building, a unit on somebody's property. And he's basically saying, you just put it there.
Right.
He's saying that, if I understood right, he contends that we never approved it. Or
Well,
the
yeah,
town
it
never approved
didn't
They
come
just
to
put
site
it up.
plan review,
Yeah,
it wasn't
Yeah,
a
because it's
subdivision.
not, right.
So,
Sometimes they're A&Rs, but they don't.
Right.
always
yeah,
do that.
this
Right.
was just, I believe on an existing lot, that they
Right.
just built this very
Yeah.
large accessory building.
Right.
So if you all agree, I'd like to maybe work with,
No,
building commissioner to see if there, like, to draft something to bring back to this board, but I would like
yeah.
to consider.
But is this,
putting
would this do more than residential, would be business too, is like?
a-
kinda
No,
like
so this would be mainly
residential?
for residential.
On a residence,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
So-
think, I mean, we
I mean,
got that
unless it
one
makes sense
business,
to do,
property that we're reviewing now.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
2 and 4 Bedford,
Right.
right?
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking with that, it was more in line with multiple accessory buildings.
see, I was
mean,
focusing on.
I guess, you
residential.
know.
Yeah, but isn't that
Almost
two
want to
and four
draft
is in a
something so
multi-zone
that, you know,
area?
you know, residential agricultural project is allowed certain.
Right, with the
Is
barn,
that,
like.
is that what the
like
abutter
John
came in
said.
that time and
I'm sorry?
when the abutter came in, remember we talked
Twin
about
Boys.
2 and 4?
Yep.
The abutter came in, he says, if you could do it, I'm gonna go do it. And I don't know if you remember that.
Well, I think he was
Yeah.
talking about, you know, building a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And putting up in a building like that, but, I mean, I don't think we should let,
He's a
we should let homeowners put up these metal, you know, I think they should, if they want to put up some sizable building, they should, on their residence, shouldn't they come to us to get an approval?
Well, I think there just needs to be parameters set,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
anything above those parameters, they would go to
Right.
ZBA actually
Yeah.
for like a,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause they
special
did
permit
have-
for that, so.
and it's an aside, but, you know, down in the vineyard where they've got these enormous homes going in, they had a guest house regulation where you could build a guest house. The only thing is you couldn't put a kitchen in it. And somebody came in with, and the guest house was meant as, you know, when you have somebody come to visit you and they're gonna eat with you.
Oh, yeah, they just sleep over in the guest house.
Right, right.
Right.
Well, if somebody came in with a 5,000 square foot guest house with an indoor swimming pool and all, it just didn't have the kitchen. And it met the letter of the ordinance, but certainly not the spirit of it.
Right.
And,
Right.
and the
Right.
town went crazy
Yeah,
over it.
can imagine.
So if you're all in agreement, if I work with Nate to possibly draft something that just sets sort of parameters for these accessory
Yeah.
buildings, and then, so we'll bring to town meeting potentially, the 40-hour expansion,
Mm-hmm.
the definition and
The
site plan
ADU.
requirements and special permit requirements for ADU. We will work on adding back the word contiguous to the frontage for site plan review. And we will look to bring a sort of tiered allowance for accessory structures, like size limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Without coming before plan review, or is that just in general?
So that would just be,
Just in general.
yeah.
As part of the
You know,
For
if they-
any-
If they fit the parameters, they can build it, yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing, OSRD. I myself, I know I've said this multiple times, I don't really support it. I know that it's in our housing production plan, it's in our master plan. I know certain residents have asked about it. I'm tempted to just say, we've got the draft, we've had town council review it. I'd suggest maybe just adding, making minor revisions to make it maybe a larger requirement, so it requires more than just 20 acres to do it. And then if it works well, then maybe make the requirement lesser. And then potentially, instead of as an option, the SHI component and senior component, having just a requirement of either one of those, having either affordable income units required or a senior component. So those are just the two little tweaks that I think.
Like a percentage of the houses, so that way to utilize it?
Yeah, just to be required, so that the town is getting a benefit with the senior. I think people want to see the senior, and then, the SHI units, because we also don't want to just keep adding market rate units and not having that SHI requirement or
the fluctuation and
percentage in there, because it pushes us farther away from our safe harbor. So those are the 5 things. I know it seems like a lot, and maybe we'll, not finish with all 5 and have to withdraw, but I would like to see about bringing those 5.
Yeah. No,
If, so I myself don't support OSRD. Do we have at least 3 here that would make a positive recommendation to town meeting for OSRD?
Yeah.
So, yes?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, so those are the 5 things that I would like to have placeholders
For town meeting?
for town meeting.
And there's 5?
5. Well, so 3 of them pertain to, 2 of them pertain to site plan review, the contiguous and the accessory structure.
Okay.
Then we have that 40-hour expansion, the ADU, and the OSRD.
Okay.
So, that being said, if anybody is interested in working on these, I'll work with Nate on trying to come up with this this tiered accessory structure. Would anybody like to try to work on adding that? I don't know. The contiguous seems pretty straightforward. That seems easy enough.
Yeah.
And then, even just the definition for the ADUs, and that should be fairly easy enough and straightforward. I don't know, Dan, do you want to, I know you've been
Sure.
pretty quick to draft things.
Yeah.
Do you want to work on
Yeah.
drafting?
Yeah.
At least
Well,
just,
Town council was gonna have something too, they were gonna send
I'll do.
us.
well, she had that she did draft that, that letter that we had read. So that has the definition right in it.
Yep.
So I would just copy and paste it as the definition. And then, site
then-
plan review requirements, special permit, and just get something drafted and then
Yep.
send it around. Obviously include Kathy, and we'll put it back on the next agenda. And and
40R, you've got to identify the parcel.
so the 40R, yes, so I did speak with Rhino earlier this week, and they told me that by Friday, they should have those, meets and bounds available. So I'm hoping by tomorrow, I'll see something from them on that.
Now, we're gonna do just the
Just the location.
40B
that is
parcel that they're
proposed,
talking about and not,
Correct,
okay.
yeah. All right, anybody else, anything
Was-
on these town meeting items, questions?
Without tying something that derails the process, is there any other spot in town where we wanna, identify for a possible 40R?
Well, if, I mean, if anything, it's going to be down in LeBaron Hills. I mean,
Well,
if
so,
they're
so
gonna
look
do
at
that.
our, so I
Yeah.
think, I don't know if you guys reviewed the housing production plan. That is now live on the website.
Okay,
So review that housing production plan, look through it, because that does have a map with areas that have already been designated. And so when you look to the next housing production plan, they're good for 5 years. So when you look for the next, to the next housing production plan, they will be looking for where you want to expand. So that is something
Yeah.
to be considered next time around.
LeBaron's
with
the next one.
With the housing production plan.
He wants to put four-story units down there,
I know.
and everybody's adamant that will not happen.
Yeah. All right, so is everybody
Yeah.
all good with that item? All right, so discuss 40R smart growth overlay expansion. So we already touched on this.
So they help you do this.
Oh, and so one of my questions for Monday is, actually,
Should pretty much go in with that list of 5 items for them.
no, so those 5 items are for town meeting. So this is, the 40R smart growth overlay. So we have had an invite for Monday, 5:30 with the select board. So town council will be there.
Okay.
They have the ADUs on their agenda. They're gonna include, the 40R smart growth expansion on that. And they also have a discussion regarding mitigation for 40B projects. So those are kind of interesting items that it would be great if you guys can attend, take some notes, report back to this board. I'm sure we can watch it as well, because it's
Yep.
gonna be on LakeCAM. But for the, I think I basically asked her the questions I had, actually, for the 40R. I did want to ask one thing though about the ADUs as to whether they can be, deed restricted
deed restricted, yep.
as SHI units. So if somebody wants to ask that,
Yep.
that would be great. So we have Dan and David attending on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so we'll compile some questions and
Yeah, well, so she kind of, she
It
answered
pretty
my
much
questions
answered
right
a lot
there,
of them, yeah.
You know, because she said that we don't really need the special, we can go for the fall, and it'll be such a much faster process. So that was the majority of my questions.
so do we even,
It's good to go.
okay.
And just let her know, like, if they ask, planning board, we had this discussion.
Yep.
We did agree that if we can get this done at fall town meeting, we don't need to do the special.
Okay.
The special is
So
basically,
very-
I wanted to just cover our behinds and just make sure that if we need to get this done as soon as possible, like, we're not
Yep.
like wasting a day.
Right,
But if there's not a rush,
Okay.
okay,
then I'm okay
that
with
sounds
it.
great.
Can we help you draft that?
So our next meeting is September 12th, 2024 at the Lakeville Police Station. And, now I know we had one person in the audience. Did you have any?
Oh, I'm seeing people's, I'm writing.
Oh, with the paper. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yes,
All right.
I'm not really, yes.
Okay. I didn't see you. All right. Any other business? Oh, there were 2 things. I'd like to put on a monthly agenda update for Serped. So if you have information from Serped that you'd like to share, Jack,
His name?
since you're our planning board rep from Master Plan, if you would like to, bring any comments, questions, concerns that they have, and we can discuss it, and then you can bring that back to Master
Yes.
Plan.
Yep.
So, I
can
think our
bring you
next
in the
meeting,
latest master plan.
what's that?
I can bring you in the latest master plan that Rita put together.
Okay.
We met the other night.
Well, and if they have any questions for planning board
Yeah, I will.
or anything like that, you can come back and forth and we'll try to put it on. I know we were supposed to do a review of the planning board, goals.
Goals.
So maybe we'll just try to sneak it in there
Well,
and just do it, touch on Serpent and
I
touch
told
on
him,
master.
I says, I mean, I'm a newcomer. I said, but I would think the major objective, a mission, of whatever you want to call it, the planning board would be to have every chairman of every board come in and say, here's the master plan that you've had.
Yeah.
Where are you in accomplishing?
Well, so that's what your job is, as the,
Yes, and Mark, before you took the throne, he that's what he did. He
right,
came in and they talked to him. And I said, well, so who's next?
right.
That's, it's,
Yeah. And I mean, I can even, and so when we talk about planning board goals, because we have master plan on there,
I will.
maybe we'll add something with Serpent, and there's even CPC is on there to have a
Sure.
meeting, like I can always give an update, on that. So obviously September 12th is pretty packed. Let's maybe focus on the end of September, for goals and master plan, Serpent, and CPC, and also Kathy, as the, we also are supposed to do the
who's she?
the PPA here. So do we have to hold a meeting this year for that?
I mean, you could.
Okay. So there,
I mean, technically, I think it was supposed to be every quarter,
okay,
but I think during COVID, that just kind of fell apart.
okay. So is that something we have to, so we used to do PPA meetings and we'd just meet like at 6:30, like a half hour before our regularly scheduled meeting
Yeah.
to do we're the plan approval authority for 40R. So anything that would come up, but I didn't know if there's anything that has to be done on a regular basis.
I mean, it's in the regulations, so technically, well, I think that was supposed to be every month.
Oh.
I don't recall. And I think they voted to change that to quarterly.
Okay. And at this point, with nothing else really coming before us, it would almost make sense to just do it as needed.
Yeah.
But, does that require a vote?
Well, I mean, you could put that on there and then you could change the regulations to
Oh, but
as
that's in our
needed.
rules and regulations?
In those rules and regs.
Right. So that's something to keep an eye out when we do the full deep dive into it.
Okay.
But so for now, do we need to schedule a meeting for that for any reason? No, not really, not yet, unless Rhino
Like I
does
said,
this.
unless you want to do that, like, change that just so the meetings are when needed.
But then we'd have to
You would have to hold
hold a
meeting
whole
to do
public
that.
hearing again.
No, those are now those,
Oh, those have their own regulations, you mean?
Yes.
So it's separate.
yes. So I think that those could be done just in a meeting.
Okay. I mean,
I can check with that.
yeah,
next time I see a meeting.
if you can send those around too, just so that I don't know if I've seen them and I don't know how long. Yeah, so if you could send around the regulations, that way we can just look at it, see what it says, and if we have to hold a quick little meeting before 7:00 to just address that, just to make
Okay.
sure we're not
Sure.
missing anything. All right, other than that, do we have a motion? Oh, was there
Just
something else?
one other quick thing. Kathy, quick question for you. Do you have, or would it be beneficial moving forward, if you have any updates you want to share with the board, as part of our meetings? Do you want like a separate section to share any new updates? Would
Well,
that be?
I wanna, that's one of the questions I had for Amy, just like, kind of like an update maybe on projects.
Yeah,
But as far as how that would have to be posted, I think just for admin updates, you don't need to
okay.
list them out. So let me check with her on that.
And the only reason why I bring this up is because Kathy's pretty involved with, what we're doing and everything. But if there's any updates that we should, as a board, know about, and kind of, hey, heads
Yeah.
up, this is coming down the road, just so we have it in a documented sense and it's part of the packet and you can kind of give us an update as to what's going on with it. Or I guess if there's anything that we should be looking at further from your perspective. I was just thinking of that as we're going through this. I mean, I think that would be helpful if you had an update for us for future meetings, if you're open to that.
Yeah, I mean, so like, what exactly are you looking for?
I think you had, I don't know if it was the last agenda or agenda before, you had a few little updates for us,
Yeah.
just for the board,
Yeah.
just to be aware
That
of,
type of thing, yeah.
that type of thing, but, you know, just open lines of communication, just so we're up to date, you know, anything that you think we should be looking at or discussing or bringing to our attention. 'Cause you're part of these meetings, so want to make sure that, you know, anything we should know is available.
Yeah, let me just double check with Amy.
Okay.
All right.
Does the board agree with that, or?
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
was doing those Wednesday updates
Yeah.
too, and that,
Yeah.
I did find that informative, so. Anything that's.
Oh, that was, I'm sorry.
Oh, that might have been before
That was
you.
before my
Yeah.
time.
But so, all right, with that, motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like,